Hello, it's Adam and Sam coming at you like Cleopatra with some more delicious wrestling news. How are you today, Samuel?
I'm all right, a little bit tired, but, you know, early morning news and all that. How are you?
I'm all right. I've bitten the side of my tongue, Sam, and I can barely open my mouth. So this is going to be a hoot and a holler. Let's get on with the headlines, shall we? A report has emerged that WWE are in talks with NBC to sell the company. CM Punk has slammed WWE following yesterday's releases, and we can reveal plans for one of those released WWE stars. So we're kicking things off with a big report from Slice Wrestling, who have stated that NBC are looking to buy WWE, and those talks are in progress now, and they've made a bit of progress on them. The report states that ever since McMahon's shake-up of WWE's operations in January, outing the longtime WWE execs George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, and then replacing them, or bringing in Nick Khan in August 2020, the ball has very much been in motion. And this is obviously related to a lot of the changes that we've seen both on screen and behind the scenes. Lots and lots of staff have been let go. They brought in new commentators to try and give it that sort of more sports presentation feel. Various changes that we all know about. But yeah, they're in talks with Raw and NXT, of course, being on the USA Network. The only major bit of programming that's not on an NBC channel, because USA Network are, of course, owned by NBC, where that's the parent company, is SmackDown, who have the 5-year Fox deal that runs until 2024. Slice Wrestling sources say that NBC is patiently waiting to offer big money to buy WWE as a whole and feature all WWE programming exclusively on Peacock. And the money, the sum that's being thrown around at the moment is it's probably going to be in the range of £2 to £4, which is a hell of a lot of money. £2 to £4 billion. No, dollars.
Dollary dues.
Made a joke, balls it up. Excellent. Gold. Thanks for watching.
I can't really get my head around like the idea of WWE without a McMahon owning it. It
never thought it would happen. We said for a long time.
What comes next? What comes next?
Man, Triple H has got to be livid. If this is true, he's gone and married Stephanie McMahon. He's had to deal with her for years, and now he's not even going to get the company.
You know, well, I mean, of course, they'll probably keep as many people like that in place as possible. You know, I think keeping a McMahon in the company though might. I think keeping a McMahon and keeping Triple H in the company with NXT and the link he has to that. I think that would be beneficial from a branding standpoint for them, but at the same time, they could just gut it, and in 2 years' time, it might just resemble American Gladiators, and then they get bored of it, turn it into a cartoon, and then just cancel it. Like what happens when a network owns a wrestling company? For sure,
it's crazy. It really, really is crazy. I mean, take this with a pinch of salt, of course. We'll see how this develops, but a lot of people, really respected wrestling journalists, if there is such a thing, are talking about the idea that this is seemingly gearing up for a sale, but this is the first time that we've heard a network or a company mentioned by name, and NBC would make sense. It really would. Moving on, WWE. This is a really interesting one. This is from Front Office Sports, who have given us a sort of bit of a behind-the-scenes glimpse into WWE's goal with the company and how they want to change and what they want to become more so, stating that they want to become the next Marvel. So this is interesting. They say WWE is ready to expand from wrestling to a full-scale media universe. Now, this is something that they've been trying for a long time, with the crossovers into film and all that sort of stuff. Hey, it's not a wrestling company. It's an entertainment company, pal. Sources telling Front Office Sports that... Yeah, exactly. We're all about putting smiles on faces. The strategy is to become the next Marvel, with content driven by characters like Roman Reigns and Elias. Marvel is obviously it went from this, I don't want to say niche comic book thing, but it was this thing that was enjoyed by a far smaller portion of people than Marvel has just become the thing, hasn't it?
In a way, it almost weirdly mirrors the WWE situation. So Marvel were obviously huge at one point, and then interest in comic books, like interest in wrestling, kind of just dwindled massively. And then Marvel were able to turn that round and become what they are now, which is a huge media empire. But saying that, WWE already had this kind of crossover thing in the 90s. They were releasing albums. They were doing, they had their own movie wing. They still kind of do that sort of stuff, but, they had a lot more pronounced WWE studios and everything. And they really, were going for that. And I think in certain respects it can work if you're talking about things like, we're going to make a movie with Roman Reigns. But I think if you're going to go, right, we're going to make a movie about Hulk Hogan, okay, the one with Chris Hemsworth, still fine. If we're going to make a movie about the origins of The Undertaker, then I think it starts to, when it becomes a kayfabe movie, if it's that sort of thing they're going for. But at the same time, if it's just things like appearing in films, appearing in TV shows, releasing albums, doing all this stuff, I think that, provided they can create a bit of a boom, that stuff will take off. But I don't think you could ever be that next kind of Marvel level thing. It's going to take, I don't even know what that would look like.
That's the thing. It's a very difficult hurdle to overcome, because I think wrestling is one of these things that you either fall in love with it or you'll never really appreciate it. And it's got such a stigma around it. If we talk to people who aren't wrestling fans, and you mention to a new mate or whatever, I like wrestling, quite often you will be, I don't want to say looked down upon for it, but you might be made fun of. So, the fundamentally, wrestling is, it's still, I don't know, it's still a bit of a weird one to admit to liking. And how do you change that? How do you go about changing something which is so deeply ingrained in people's opinions and beliefs?
They need an Iron Man. That's it. So you need to go from you need to go from having that kind of stigma around it, like comic books did at one point. If I brought up the fact I was reading Spider-Man every couple of weeks to my mates when I was 13, I probably would have got looked at a bit funny, because it just wasn't as big a deal then. But then when Iron Man broke through, they had that huge thing drop. And it was everywhere. That was it. That was all people could talk about. And they need that one big thing. Now, as I said, if it's more like biopics, then I think it could work. If it's things like, like as we've heard about that Chris Hemsworth Hulk Hogan thing, that could work in the sense that you already kind of have all the stories and all the footage of these characters, and you can build from there. But I don't think we're ever going to have WrestleMania in another dimension.
No, I don't know. I just feel as if wrestling is a bit passé, and you're sure we can talk about, hey, one person, the Hulk Hogan, the Steve Austin could come along and reignite this spark which is slowly fizzling out. But I don't know. There's part of me that just thinks that wrestling might not be popular again. That might not happen because audience taste have moved on so much.
And it's
a very different world now.
It's Pandora's box, isn't it? The second that lid came off and it was all exposed, now there's no looking at it the same way.
Wrestling itself is very different. Good point. Moving on, it's more bad news, unfortunately, for WWE. Raw hitting an all-time low rating. Sammy Snake's here with the numbers. What you got for us, Sam?
Yes, so the 31st of May edition of Monday Night Raw brought in 1,418,000 overnight viewers, which was down from the prior week's 1,621,000. They did a 0.44 in the 18 to 49 demographic, down from last week's 0.45. And the third hour did a 1.1, which means barely over 1 million people watched the third hour, which, I mean,
tragic, isn't it?
Just to go back to that first point, if this is the point where you're looking to sell, this needs to change.
You can make things look good on paper with the financials, but interest in wrestling is dwindling massively. Maybe we'll see a bit of an uptake when we get back to live crowds good and proper, but we'll have to wait and find out. Speaking of that WWE getting ready for sale story, by the way, Tom right now is working on a video that's going to be on the channel a little later today. Will Vince McMahon really sell WWE? So he's going to be giving like a proper deep dive into that. It's going to be well worth a watch. So check that out a little bit later today. Sticking with WWE now, CM Punk has slammed WWE following those releases yesterday. So This all happened on Twitter. John Squires, the editor-in-chief of Bloody Disgusting, tweeted, "One thing that's consistently bummed me out about WWE in recent years is that there's been a wealth of incredible talent in that company, but they rarely seem to really not to know what to do with any of it. The latest wave of releases is a truly stunning reflection of that issue." CM Punk replying with, "It's like a movie with a blockbuster budget and cast, but if it's written by creatively bankrupt nincompoops, specifically for an audience of one, in a language that nobody understands anymore, it's trash. But people watch it because they like movies." Hey, I think that, you know what, that really, really resonates with me. I don't watch WWE because I really like what I'm seeing on the screen. I watch it because I was a wrestling fan growing up, and it makes me feel a little bit special still.
That's it. And at the end of the day, I think what's going on with WWE now that they have competition is that they've forgotten what to do. Because for so long, there was no other option, was there? You had smaller wrestling companies, but there was nobody of that level with the huge, presentation style, the huge arenas, the massive, massive pay-per-views. If you wanted the really big, flashy stuff, and you didn't have access to stuff from around the world, you had to watch WWE. There was no other choice for that big of tier. And so for years, they were the only destination.
Yep.
And that was it. You want to watch wrestling, you watch WWE. And now there's more on the plate, and people are finally able to choose. And it's got to turn around, man, because this is...
It's not fun to talk about, is it? It's really frustrating.
No.
I don't want to sit here and just whinge for 10 minutes.
There's
Thanks
a reason we do this job. There's a reason we do this job.
It's for Patreon subs. To exploit you.
We sit here and we talk about wrestling because we're wrestling fans.
Yeah,
and
we love it. We really do. It sucks, doesn't it?
It falling apart like this.
It's not fun. It's not fun. We want to love it. We really, really do. And there's loads of great wrestling out there. It's worth pointing out. It's just that the big company, the company that we have to cover because that's what the biggest portion of our fan base are into. Their flagship show isn't very fun at the moment anyway. Hey, maybe it'll get better. We're finishing off with plans for one of those released superstars. We're talking about Santana Garrett, who is of course released yesterday. She was slated to debut for SmackDown. This comes from PW Insider. So it said that Garrett had been planned to move to the main roster, similar to the recently released Vanessa Bourne, but never actually debuted, and had been waiting on her official debut to actually be worked into the storylines, which isn't very nice, is it?
Hey, you're getting called up, now you're getting released.
That's not fun, is it? It's not fun. Santana Garrett tweeting, "Thank you at WWE. Peace, love, and headband power." Hey, it's another one, and we say this all the time, but we'll go on to do great stuff. She's a tremendously talented wrestler. So good luck to her and everybody else. I'd have liked to see her on SmackDown, but there you go. Well, that's it from me and Sam. A couple of grumpy Gusses.
It's just sad news. How are we supposed to make this all chipper when it's all just doom and gloom?
Come on, bring back Gangrel and we'll all go mental. Just bring back one of come on, D'Lo Brown or something. Oh, he's an Impact. But see you later. Have a good day. All the best. Oh.